All right, we are live. Melisa?
All right. Thank you, Abhijit. Wonderful to have you all here today. Looking forward to morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you may be. Looking forward to talking to you a little bit about have you all here today. Looking forward to morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you may be. Looking forward to talking to you a little bit about have you all here today. Looking forward to morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you may be. Looking forward to
Melisa, can you have open the session on YouTube?
Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you may be.
You must have opened the session on YouTube. Can you please stop YouTube session on YouTube?
Morning, afternoon.
Please unmute yourself.
Okay.
Do you have YouTube open on your computer? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm unmuted. Okay.
Do you have YouTube open on your computer? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm unmuted. Okay.
Do you have YouTube open on your computer? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm unmuted.
Okay. What you can do is probably you can close this StreamYard platform, close everything on your computer, and join me again on StreamYard. Okay, that's a good way. Welcome back. Can you share your screen?
Yes.
They're still getting echo.
Still hearing the echo?
1 second.
Oh my goodness, I don't know why that keeps going.
Yeah, I guess we can start speaking. We'll see if you get echo.
Okay, I think you were asking. I did have YouTube Live open on my computer, so nothing like starting a presentation and hearing yourself. We all cringe when we hear all our own voices. Let's try this again. Thank you for your patience, and Abhijit, thank you for your technical assistance. Looking forward to talking to you about the differences across program formats, so why don't we jump in? Just real quick, my name is Melisa Prevost. I'm an admissions consultant with Stratus Consulting, and started doing this primarily because I was an alumni interviewer for Haas for many years at post-graduation, and always found I wanted to jump on the other side of the table and help my interviewees out. So this has been my way over the last almost 6 years now, in helping people with their admissions process. So, Stratus, we're a consulting firm that does, team-based approach to consulting. Other thing that's a little unique about us is we have a 4-school guarantee. So if you apply to 4 schools with us in round 1 and do not get an acceptance, we'll work with you for another 2 schools in round 2. So what are we going to talk about today? Why do you want an MBA? This is a key part of a decision factor when it comes to what type of program might be for you. What are the different types of programs? Why you might consider, what are some of the pros and cons? And then I've got a couple of case studies to walk you through, and then we'll make sure that we leave plenty of time for questions at the end. So why do you want an MBA? Generally, we hear from people that they want to change something about their career, and an MBA is a platform to do that. So the different ways that we've kind of broke it down into four different ways are that you can change your career. One is by level, right? Growing within your company into maybe a management position. The second might be geography, using an MBA to help get you to a different location. So say you were in the Midwest and want to get closer to technology on the West Coast, or finance on the East Coast. Third is industry. So wanting to change, going from finance to technology, consulting to banking, changing the industry that you're working in. And the fourth is function. So this is kind of your role within the company. So might be, you might be working in corporate finance in a company and want to be transitioning more onto the technology side. So now some people, the more of these that you want to change, the bigger change it is, obviously. And the more you need to build a case for why an MBA, or what skills you have that can help you make that change. And also, the different types of programs are going to lend themselves to, and we'll get to this, but a full-time if you're changing multiple of these, that's where a full-time program is probably going to be most beneficial for you. So let's move to just making sure that we're all grounded on kind of the program definitions. So full-time program, it's a 2-year residential program with an internship, and you stick with that same cohort throughout your 2 years. It's a daytime program, right? So your classes are during the day. You can maybe take some night classes if they're available, but it's primarily during the day. And the average, kind of the middle 80% years of experience that we see is 3 to 8 years. So average is generally 4 to 5. Part-time programs. So these are sometimes evening, weekend, fully employed. So the age or the time frame is more flexible. Some, Kellogg even says that you can finish theirs in 1.25 years, so 1.25 years. But there's a little bit more flexibility, right? You can start going fast if something comes up with work. You can spread it out. You're taking credits per semester, and you can dial up or dial down as you're interested. Generally, it's not a cohort-based system. So because of the flexibility, you're taking classes with different people, which can lend itself to interesting conversations. These are evening and weekend. And the years of experience we see is a little bit higher, so kind of 5 to 12 years of experience. There are some programs targeting fewer years of experience. So again, Kellogg, as an example, has an emerging leaders program where they're targeting less than 3 years of experience for their part-time program. But generally speaking, we're looking for a little bit more years of experience. EMBA. So EMBA, generally speaking, it's around 2 years. Again, depending upon the program, it may be a little less or a little bit more. Similar to the full-time program with an EMBA, schools try to keep you with the same cohort. So you're going through the program with the same people. Again, each EMBA program has their format. So if, as you're looking at this, really looking at what each school is offering and how that works with what you're hoping is a good thing to do. So, for example, Haas has a program where you can meet once a month or twice a month. And generally these weekends you're flying in, physically being there from a Thursday to Friday to a Saturday to Sunday. So it's a couple days. And it's got this kind of residential immersion. So generally you have some schools, it's a couple weeks that you come together once a year. Sometimes it's 1 week per semester. So again, it varies, but there's this mix of weekend meeting along with the residential immersion. And the years of experience we see with the EMBA on average is kind of 10 to 20. Now I've had clients, and we'll get to some of that are 8 to 9, so on the lower end. But it is definitely a more experienced group that you're sitting in classes with. I wanted to add 2 other flavors here that I continue to get more questions about. One is the 1-year full-time program. So what's the difference. Generally, these are about a year and a quarter. So for instance, I have a client starting the Cornell Tech MBA. That's going to be starting in May. And then she'll go through and graduate kind of a year and a quarter from there. So you tend to get that summer before where you would normally start. And that kind of can build itself out to a year and a quarter. Also, you're working with the same cohort. So you kind of come in with this group and graduate with the same group in the day. And then with the full-time program or the one-year programs, it really depends. So there are, for instance, the NYU Tech MBA, Cornell Tech, the Fashion and Luxury Industry MBA through NYU. These are targeted per industry. And so the years of experience tend to be a little bit lower. Then you've got the Stanford MSX program, as well as the MIT Fellows program, and they are geared towards individuals with more years of experience. So MIT wants you to have at least 10 years of experience for their one-year program. Kellogg sits in the middle. Their one-year program, they're really looking for you to have business experience or being able to show that you have some of the core classes, and you can kind of get through those quickly and then move on to your electives. So it really depends on the program. Then last, just online, because I feel like this is a growing industry. Wanted to quickly talk about that. So, there's the big benefit of online is the flexible timing, right? You can start and stop when it is convenient for you. Generally, it is evening and weekends. There are some programs, so Carnegie Mellon's and UNC's online program have you coming in person a couple times during your tenure, so that you're getting a little bit of online in-person experience. Now, there are other programs that you don't have to come in person. So again, depending upon the benefits there for you. And then the years of experience really varies with online, because this is something from a flexibility perspective. We find people with fewer years of experience as well as more years of experience. So it's really, because it's a growing industry, it's quite flexible. So let's talk about the key differences across the programs. So full-time. So to me, the reason that you would want to choose a full-time program is you get the internship. You have experiential learning opportunities that are a part of projects. And really, we see the highest scholarship opportunities with full-time programs. Not to say that there aren't options in other programs, but from a scholarship perspective, we see the highest in full-time. And then you really get the full on-campus recruiting experience if that is something that's important to you. So some of the drawbacks or things to work around and as to what's important to you is you don't have an income during this time generally, and it's on you along with the career services of the school to find yourself a new job. So it's generally, or in many cases, a job transition. There are some people that come sponsored or know that they can go back to their prior company, but it's really looked at as a career pivot or change. So part-time. So I think one of the biggest benefits of part-time, which kind of bleeds into some of the others, is really your ability to work and learn at the same time. So you're in a familiar environment. You can go to class, learn a new concept, come back to your familiar environment, try it, and see what works, and then bring it back for discussion. So you're really able to take what you're learning and live it real time and practice it in a different way than you can with full-time. You maintain your income, right? You're still working. In fact, most schools will require that you're working. COVID has challenged that a little bit, and I think there's some flexibility there. But the expectation is, and people do often, Berkeley says that 80%, I think it was 89% of their part-time students make some sort of a change. Now, sometimes that's a level change, sometimes that's to a new company, but they're looking for you always to have employment through the program, because that's part of the benefit, is bringing that work experience to the classroom. Employee sponsorship. So some people through professional development funds can get employee sponsorship. And then also a profile review. This is a little bit more from an admissions perspective. Both part-time, and we'll talk about this with EMBA, is programs are a little bit more open to talking to you about your profile and whether or not your profile is the right fit for their program. Where just the sheer volume at a full-time program makes that difficult to do. Part-time programs tend to be more open to having a conversation, to understanding kind of where your candidacy falls. So some of the drawbacks, the requirement to be employed, like we talked about, and then I put less on-campus recruiting. Most programs, you still have access to the same career services, which serve alumni into their into longevity. But when it comes to leveraging the on-campus recruiting, generally speaking, full-time students get first choice or first dibs, I guess. Generally, it's the employer that's deciding who they're going to interview. But because it is a program's job to find the full-time employees or full-time students' jobs, sometimes part-time from a job perspective in the on-campus recruiting can be a smaller priority. So EMBA. So again, there's that work and learn component, right? You are working and can practice some of these things and then bring them back to the next meeting session that you have. You have a similar cohort, which again, falls back on the full-time, but you're kind of working with that same group and learning with that same group and probably developing relationships, stronger than you might in a part-time program where the benefit is you're constantly meeting new people, but just kind of a balancing effect. You've got 1 to 2 times a month versus part-time where generally it's kind of every evening or every weekend. And then again, on the profile review, executive programs tend to be very open to talk to you about your profile. And often I talk with people who are really deciding more between part-time and EMBA and what is going to fit, what they are looking for. So other things to think about with the EMBA is, generally the program will require your employer to sign off that they are supporting you, because generally speaking, you have to take some time off because most programs include a Friday and or weeks that can be taken as vacation. But again, they want to make sure that your employee is bought in. You're required to be employed. And then again, similar to the part-time program, kind of that less on-campus recruiting. Again, it happens and you have generally all the resources of career services, but from a companies come on campus, there's less of a priority for the executive programs. So 1 year, benefits, you get a faster completion. Generally speaking, they're industry specific. So some of the reasons that the NYU and Cornell Tech MBA and even the fashion and luxury goods out of NYU were developed is because students were leaving for their internship and companies didn't want them to come back and go back to school afterwards. They'd be trying to negotiate, you don't need to get the rest of your MBA, just stay here. So, these schools really worked with industry to develop a program that could get you in and get you out into, the tech industry or fashion and luxury industry. You still get the experiential learning opportunities that you might with a full-time program. So you don't have that internship, but often, there are projects, there are treks, things like that you can take advantage of. And generally you're included in the full on-campus recruiting. So downsides, no internship. And some of them, so I mentioned the Kellogg MBA or 1-year program is expecting you to have some business background. It's something that you need to speak about in your application. In some cases, people can take those courses ahead of time if they weren't a business degree, but they're looking for you to come in with some basic business skills. Online. So benefits here, extremely flexible. You really can make this what you need it to be. Generally less expensive. And I see more test waiver options with online programs. So sometimes not even requiring a test. Jumping back to the EMBA, that's also something that before the advent of the EA, which is obviously the test that you can take as opposed to the GMAT, is that EMBAs were offering test waivers. It is something, again, in the profile review that might be something that you want to discuss. And then with online programs, really across everything other than the online programs, you're getting the same degree, you're getting the same teachers, And so, it's really you deciding what format it is you want to take. With the online programs, one thing is, as you're doing research, if this is something that's interesting to you, is to check with the school if it is the same teachers that are teaching these classes. In some cases, it is something that Carnegie Mellon stands behind, and they suggest you reach out to other online programs to find that same information. But it's not always the same teachers on the online side. And then, there's some less networking, right? Each of the other programs has the ability to be together, meeting other people. Now, if COVID has taught us anything, right, we're learning how to network and build relationships via Zoom. So, maybe we have a new set of skills that lends ourselves to that as well. And then on campus recruiting, again, online programs tend to have access to the career services similarly, but less on the on-campus recruiting side. All right, why might you want to choose a certain program? So from a full-time program, really, if you are going back to kind of in the beginning with what might be a change, a level, geography, industry, or role, you are trying to change multiple of these factors, and you have a bigger change, one that might require you to have an internship to gain some additional skills to help you from an employment perspective, then a full-time program is going to be kind of the program for you. Other things, if having experiential learning, if you learn by doing, a full year program is something that's going to be beneficial for you. If you're ready to leave your job, right? If you are ready to move on, and this is an opportunity for you to make that happen. And then also the relationships. You spend 2 years with this cohort of individuals, and you tend to make relationships that last a lifetime. Part-time. So I would say the rest of each of these types of programs are really geared more towards a pivot. So, looking to change level, or looking to change industry, or looking to change role. Is it possible to change more than one? Of course, anything's possible, but it is going to be more difficult to make a big change through a part-time, an EMBA, a 1 year, or an online, just because you're not able to build a skill set over the summer that can then help you move into a completely new career. Also, with more years of experience, it is, often you're on a career path that is leading you good places. And so continuing on that makes more sense than kind of making a pivot that's going to bring you down a level. You get to that point, you get to continue your career progression, right? So you're able to continue on your career path and not take a step out of your career. If you like your job, right? You enjoy what you're doing and you're looking to change level or maybe change location. And if income is important, if it's, not giving up the income that you would need to in a full-time program, then a part-time program is something that's good to think about. EMBA program. So again, geared towards a pivot or pivot. A lot of times in EMBA, we see people looking to grow into management. So really that level, looking to move level. Often when I have, and I've got a profile that we'll talk about here in a second, clients that I've worked with that have chosen EMBA, one of the biggest pieces of feedback I hear from them kind of before the decision, but then really punctuated after, is the ability to sit in a classroom with similarly experienced individuals. So, we talked about the years of experience for an EMBA being kind of 10 to 20. So, you've got people that are further in their career, have had a lot of experience that they lend to the conversation. And so sitting with people in that same level of experience can be beneficial. If you're looking to continue your career, you like your job, income important, and also the EMBA and actually more part-times as well. And now even some full-times are taking the EA. So that's something that continues to evolve across programs. And I've seen a lot of clients I've worked with that have applied for an EMBA. Most of them have at least applied for a test waiver. And that was kind of, as the EAs evolved, I think that's shifting a little bit, but just something to consider. 1 year programs, very similar to the the reasons for a full-time program. The challenge is a big change, again, mostly because you're part of going into the one-year program, if it is a targeted program, is to make that change. You would choose to go into the tech MBA because you wanted to end up in technology, right? So you're making that choice, arguably, by getting into that program. And so you're leveraging some of your experience behind. Relationships, again, you're with this group for a year plus, able to build those relationships. And there's less time of the workforce, right? As I said, these were designed with industry to get you in and out the skills that you need so that you can be back out in the workforce. From an online perspective, this is really geared toward pivot. Flexibility is key, lower cost, and again, the test waiver, if testing is something that is not a fun part of your journey. So I just want to walk through a couple profiles, just to give you, someone who has chosen a couple of these different programs that we're deciding between programs. So this was a client of mine a couple of years ago who came to me wanting to go to a full-time program. He had 12 years of experience, had a master's in engineering already, and he wanted to go to a full-time program because he thought, from a networking perspective, it was going to be the best option for him. We spent a lot of time talking. He spent a lot of time talking to schools, setting up profile reviews with EMBA programs, talking with admissions ambassadors at different schools, and he decided to apply to EMBA programs. And going back to what I said earlier, the biggest reason I think he made this choice were there were two things. One, he was not enjoying the testing process, and he was able to get a couple test waivers so that he had some strong undergraduate experience and his master's experience. He had great work experience, so the rest of his package was very solid. And so with not having the test, there was a lot to work from. But also, as he met individuals, he got to talk to alumni and other current students from the EMBA programs. He really learned to value the experience level that he would be sitting in the classroom with. So second one, this is actually a client who was trying to decide between part-time and full-time. And she on the years of experience, she was 7 years of experience, so kind of on that upper end of the range, and had been doing financial consulting for the entire time. And through her process of kind of deciding what it is she wanted from an MBA, she really decided that she wanted to move into investment banking. So she had done some extracurricular activities that had kind of introduced her to the concept of kind of helping women-owned businesses find funding, and she realized she had hit her kind of experience level, what she knew from a financial analysis perspective, and really was looking for a greater set of skills so that long-term this is something that she could do, and identified investment banking as really the right post-MBA step for her. And in talking with again, admissions ambassadors, and on the part-time program admission side, she really learned that to make this big of a change, even though she was in finance, that she really needed the full-time experience so that she could get an internship within a bank to make that transition. And so she decided to apply to full-time programs, and will be going to UCLA next year. And last example is a client who was trying to decide between full-time and part-time as well. He has an automotive background, so he has about 14 years of experience in automotive background. And he, when we first started talking, he wanted to move into finance. And partially, as we peeled back the layers, it was because he was excited about innovation and wanted to get involved on the financing side of innovation. So kind of PE, VC sort of stuff. As we talked further, on top of the 14 years of experience is a lot for a full-time program, really making the shift to finance with his profile, because he did not have experience in finance at all before. It wasn't something that he could show kind of a personal path to. Sometimes people will have a personal side that really shows what they want to move to, and so you can leverage that personal story. So he did not have anything that he could fall back on from a personal side. So he really decided to take his goals to the innovation side and work at it through, so he was an engineer, work at it in growing up through management or staying on the cutting edge of innovation. So he is currently applying to Parttime and actually one EMBA program that he found. But it is working through that process, but really wanted to have an example as to where, a part-time program might make sense. So why don't we jump to questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so I can see your questions. All right. So happy to, all right, this is good. Good to see we've got lots of good questions here. So first one, so considering someone in their 30s wants to continue career progression, having more than 10 years of experience in tech, which program would be recommended for across? So with 10 years of experience, you are generally outside of the full-time program kind of bubble there with the 3 to 8 years of experience. So, I think targeting either a one-year program, technology, again, from MIT and Stanford jump to mind, and their programs are geared towards higher years of experience. If you are in the US and wanting to stay in the US, you could consider a part-time program. You can still consider, if you're outside of the US, you can consider, it's just from a travel cost perspective, a little bit higher. EMBAs do tend to be very international. So people will fly in internationally for EMBAs. And, another one-year programs, I focus this more on the US, but, many of the European programs are one-year programs as well. So, I think with 10 years of experience, wanting to stay in tech, I think, an EMBA, a part-time, or a one-year program, either in or outside of the US, depending upon where you want to be long-term, is probably going to make sense for you. All right. Oh, goodness, I'm jumping. All right, let's see here. Do recruiters and full-time and part-time MBA differ in terms of value? Could you also highlight if business schools are switching to part-time owing to the current scenario, switching schools to part-time? So let me answer the first point. The recruiters, so generally speaking, when you are putting an MBA in your resume, you put that you received an MBA from Duke, right? You're not saying you got a part-time MBA from Duke or a full-time MBA from Duke. So, and generally speaking, outside of the on-campus recruiting, I think on-campus can be a little bit different. So we'll come back to that. Recruiters are looking at the value of the MBA, whether you received it part-time or full-time. The on-campus, again, just as I spoke to before, generally speaking, full-time or one-year program students are going to have a higher kind of priority from an on-campus recruiting perspective, because part of the whole goal is to get them jobs. And then consider if business schools are switching to part-time owing to the current scenario. I'm assuming that is COVID. I don't think schools are switching to part-time. Many schools, and I won't say all, but many schools have part-time programs at all. Have part-time programs now. So, what I have seen over COVID is that many of the full-time programs had to go remote, be virtual. Part-time programs being the same, but I'm not seeing schools necessarily switching to part-time programs because most of them have them. Kanchan, if I'm not answering your question correctly, please put in the chat and I'll try and expand. So Mohita's asking, do EMBAs have age limits? Rarely seeing people being accepted after 15 years of experience. So again, I tend to see kind of 10 to 20 years of experience, so maybe a little bit higher than 15. I think if you're getting much above 15, that the question that you need to be able to answer for yourself and for admissions is, what value is the MBA going to bring you, right? So the more years of experience you have, some of these things we just learn on the job through doing. And so the question that you'll need to answer is, why do you need an MBA? What is it you're hoping to use and learn? And part of the reason admissions care about this is they want you to feel as though you've received value. And so they need to understand the value that you see, because as an alumni, they want you to turn around and talk about how great their program was and how much it helped you. And if you can't articulate that value to them and they can't clearly see it, then it'll be more challenging for them to understand why at 20 years of experience an EMBA is the right option for you. Which one? So for 15 years of experience, EMBA or 1 year if tech. So the question is, which type should be preferred, EMBA or 1 year program, if tech is the focus? And I would say across the 1 year programs, right, you're going to have the NYU Tech MBA, the Cornell Tech MBA. They have a wider years of experience band. And so, I think it would be good to talk with a couple students there and understand what those classrooms are like. I would say, their years of experience is probably lower than the 15, but, you want to be able to articulate for yourself, and again, for admissions, is why this 1 year program is going to help you. And so if you're kind of pivoting into technology or wanting to leverage what you're doing into more of a technical field, then you're building off of what you have and can use that 1 year to pivot. An EMBA, I think is agnostic to industry, right? So if you are trying to use the MBA to pivot into technology, then I would gear towards something that is going to be more technology specific. An EMBA is going to give you great general management. And if you go to a more technology-based firm, then you could get that. And I'm thinking, Carnegie Mellon jumps to mind from an EMBA perspective, Haas, MIT, like there are programs out there that just from a technology perspective really hit high. So those EMBA programs might be good ones to consider. All right, Ankur. So would you compare the EMBA at Booth, London versus Kellogg MBA versus Tuck Fulltime MBA? And please compare the EMBA. Okay, so this one is a little bit specific. I'll talk in general, really, I think because you've got EMBA and MBA in here, I think the first question you need to answer for yourself is which lane you want to go in. Is it EMBA or is it full-time? Because I think comparing the two can be very difficult because the experiences are just so different. And so, deciding whether or not you want the EMBA versus, where it looks like Booth or London you're considering, or the full-time, where Kellogg or Tuck. And so, I would love anyone who has specific questions on your profile, please feel free to sign up for a free consultation. I'd love to dig deeper, but want to make sure that we're getting some of the high-level questions here. So let's see, how would you rate an EMBA versus full-time in terms of prospective employment post-graduation? Any recommendations for EMBA targeted towards tech? So I think I answered that one a little bit before, but most programs are really trying to grow their technology. I think if you look at a full-time program or really the school in general, if technology is a focus, that's a great EMBA program to be looking at. So again, ones that jump to mind for me, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but MIT, Haas, Carnegie Mellon, Foster, you've got schools that are very entrenched in technology, and all their programs as well as their schools. Michigan is another one that there's going to be bleeding across the different programs to be able to take advantage. And then as far as prospective employment post-graduation, again, I see less that people are using an EMBA to change careers. So, with an EMBA, you have a career that you might be looking for opportunities to network and change, but that it doesn't need to culminate in graduation necessarily, right? You could be recruiting while you're taking classes. You may change companies actually in the middle of your MBA if that opportunity presents itself. Which is different than the full-time where you're kind of gearing up to finding that job at the end of the full-time program. So I would say from a employment post-graduation, once you have the MBA, then it is leverageable across all the programs, right? As I said before, you don't put on your resume, I have an EMBA from Kellogg. You have an MBA from Kellogg because it's the same teachers, it's the same program, it's just delivered differently and with different levels of experience in the classroom. So I think employment perspectives and really from an alumni and career services perspective, all schools work very hard to support their alumni. So, as you're graduating, because many people make career changes, post MBA, right? 5-6 years down the road, 10 years down the road. And the career services is really geared towards helping. There's a lot of programs that will geared towards helping alumni. All right. So let's move into, our scholarships not given for EMBA are 1 year compared to the 2-year programs. So as I said, we see the highest scholarships with 2-year. I do see 1 year again, because the way I think about it is, schools realize that you're both giving up your income and paying money out to come to their programs full year or 2-year or 1 year if they're full-time. I see some scholarships. So for example, I have a client who applied to Booth and Kellogg this year, their part-time programs, and was deciding between the two, and was able. I think he got $15,000 a year, where from a full-time perspective, we see full rides. We had, I think, $8.5 million in scholarships last year for across all the programs, but 95% of that came from full-time programs. Let's see. Oh, thank you for putting in the free consultation in there. Please sign up for a time if we can go deeper into your profile. So a candidate with 6 years of experience as an analyst in healthcare, banking, and a startup, which MBA program is suitable? You are really in a place where you get to decide, I think. 6 years is, I think you can easily apply within a full-time program. You're on the upper end. So implicitly answering a little bit of this, why now? Why maybe not a year or two ago? So thinking through kind of that answer, but you're still within that 80% band of full-time programs or 1-year programs. But I also think, a part-time program, if that lends itself to what you are looking to do, would work just as well for you. I think, the thing to consider is if you are trying to make a change. So, Anjana, I don't know if you want to tell me what you're looking to go into. That might be helpful. Because if you're looking to make a change, because it looks like you've got healthcare, banking, and startup, which is kind of exciting to have all those different experiences. If you're looking to continue in one of those, then I think you could use a part-time program to do that for sure. If you're looking to go into a new position that might leverage some of those skills, but leverage the MBA as well, then a full-time program giving you that opportunity to have an internship is, and maybe build some skills or that platform onto where you want to go post MBA is going to be important. So that's really kind of your deciding factor, is how big of a change are you hoping to make? And let me take that as an opportunity to talk about, it is important in your application and as you're going through this, especially with full-time programs, to be able to articulate what it is you want to do post MBA. I talk with some people, do I really, I want to investigate, I want to decide what I want to do, and that's fine. And when you're in a program, you should investigate all options. But really, schools want to understand what it is you want to do post MBA so that you can build a plan and show them that you can get there. And so, as I talk about this internship, that can be a key component of building this plan in making sure that, if there's a skill set that you need in order to go to your post MBA career, an internship is a place that you can often get those skills. All All right. Let's see here. So with 18 years of experience, mostly transactionally based, employee relations, recruitment, less in strategic projects, can someone get into an MBA? So I think yes. The clients that I've had that have gone to EMBAs, so there are definitely some people that have, are executives already, but I think there are also people who are growing to, looking to grow their career. This would be a question of really sitting down with some different EMBA programs and talking through your profile so that they can give you more detailed experience, more detailed feedback. Again, the clients that I've worked with that have gone MBA, the ones that I've worked with have not been in the executive suite yet. That's where they want to end up. And they had higher years of experience, some experience leading some teams, but not, they were growing to be executives. They weren't there yet. So Priya, I'm not sure if that answers your question. If not, please feel free to add something in the chat. So 12 years of experience on more kind of the finance, and FMGC and finance specialization. So Sachin, I'm not quite understanding. Are you in finance now, or you want to move into finance? So just give me that and I can answer a little bit more. So 2 years of experience in IT and would like to move to administrative position, which MBA. So Alan, administrative, do you mean kind of more managerial? So if you can give me a little bit more, I can answer that one a little bit more clear. Krish asked, should you prefer to do an MBA in the US? So I think it depends where you want to be post-graduation. I think there are amazing business school programs around the world. And that's kind of where we talked about geography. If you want to spend some time working in the US, then an MBA in the US is going to be a good way to try and make that transition. Yes, there are people that go to business school in Europe and end up in the US. It's just a more arduous route to get there. But so that's really, if you are looking to spend time in the US working, then I think there's a benefit to going to an MBA in the US. If you are looking to get an international experience, but then maybe go back to your home country post-MBA, then I think European programs, I think Asian programs, I think there are programs around the world that can help you get there. And part of what you would want to think about is what experiences are you looking for that are going to help you get to where you want to be. Amanda is asking, how common is it for people to get rejected from a full-time program and then follow up and get accepted to a part-time program? So this happens quite often there are a couple schools. I think Haas was doing this a couple years ago. I think they've transitioned, and I feel like UCLA was doing this year, is people would apply to the full-time program. They wouldn't be accepted to the full-time program, but then they'd be suggested to apply to the part-time program. And so a couple years back, I had a couple clients that worked out with Haas for them. So generally speaking, full-time programs and part-time programs have completely different admissions teams. The one question that you would want to ask as you're prioritizing your applications is, can you apply to both programs in the same academic year? So some schools you can only apply to one program per year per kind of application cycle. So that we'd be kind of coming up for a start time. So start fall 2022 is what we're working towards. Where some schools might let you apply in the fall for full-time, and if that doesn't work out, apply in the winter for part-time. Reaching out to the part-time programs and kind of understanding or admissions in general, and really understanding what their rules are from that perspective. But because there are separate application processes, generally speaking, and this is a generalization, we're going to find data points that are outside of this, is we see that part-time programs tend to be a little less challenging from a test score perspective. In GPA, they tend to be a little bit more lenient, but they also look more strongly at your work experience, right? So they're kind of leveraging across the two, but we see that. So Alan came back and said, yes, managerial. So thank you, from IT to kind of more of a managerial role. So generally speaking, any MBA program is going to help you grow skills that are going to help you to grow as a manager. I'm going to make an assumption for conversation that you want to stay kind of more in the technology, grow from a management perspective, leveraging your technology background. So I would say with 2 years of experience, if right now is the right time for you, I'd almost investigate online because 2 years of experience is most full-time programs are looking for 3 years of experience. If you can wait a year, I think that you're kind of ripe for a full-time or a 1 year experience. If you're interested in the NYU or Cornell Tech MBA, that might be an interesting option for you. Because again, it's going to give you generally if you're coming in with technology, you can layer the managerial skills on top of it. Or if you're coming with managerial, you can kind of layer the technology on it through that 1 year program. But I think with your years of experience, either, kind of as you get into that 3 years, the 2 year or the 1 year MBA are going to make the most sense for you. If you are looking earlier, then you might want to consider online. So 8 to 9 years of work experience, is a full-time MBA possible? Yes, it's possible. I've had clients that I remember in my class, there was a woman who was 40, right? The biggest question that you need to answer is, why is now the right time for you? The concerns that schools have when they see higher years of experience or what they're trying to understand about your profile, I don't want to call it a concern, is, are you going to be employable post-MBA? In some cases, employers are looking for someone who is impressionable isn't the right word, but that can grow within their company, and they sometimes are concerned with higher years of experience. Now that said, if thinking through why now is the right time for you, if there's been something recent that has really opened your eyes to how business school education can benefit you, if there was something that was you were managing too many things and it wasn't going to make sense or be possible for you. These are all things you would want to explain. And if you can't explain it in an essay that's asked, because you always want to make sure you're answering those questions specifically, is you could use the optional essay to explain. And you don't want to write an optional essay, should be more bullet form, informational, but you could give some insight into why now is the right time for you. But you're, again, similar to, as we talked about 6 years earlier, you're on the upper end, but you're kind of in between, you're kind of at the sweet spot of, you could almost do just about any of the programs. But what you're going to need to do is really explain why MBA, why that type of program. In addition to, all of you should be thinking about why that program and what resources you're going to use at that program. All right, so Sachin wants to move into finance. Thank you for that. So moving into finance, with 12 years of experience, you're somewhat out of the normal band of a full-time MBA. And so again, I never like to tell anyone that nothing's possible, or that things are impossible, but it's going to be an uphill battle from a full-time MBA perspective. I think, a part-time, a 1 year, or even an EMBA, that's going to help you kind of make that is going to help be more commensurate with your years of experience there. I think you're probably, the full-time is going to be challenging for you. Hello, Deepanshu. How are you? Nice to see you on here. Let's see. Any suggestions on applying to an EMBA or full-time with 9 years of experience, master's engineering, manufacturing, and a high test score? So really, I think what you want to decide is what you are hoping to do with the EMBA. I think staying in the manufacturing MBA, with the MBA, staying in the manufacturing industry. If you are looking to grow within manufacturing, then I think either full-time or EMBA could work for you. as we talked about a little bit earlier, really explaining why now is the right time for you, and why, at 9 years, why you weren't thinking about this 4 or 5 years ago is going to be the question on admissions mind, on full-time admissions mind. I think that, part-time and EMBA programs, you're right in their wheelhouse from a years of experience perspective. So you don't need to answer that question for them as much. But it's, and if you're staying within manufacturing, and growing and kind of working to come back to manufacturing, then an EMBA is going to help you grow your network, grow access to industry. Again, your test score is quite high, so that is not, as I mentioned, I've had clients who have kind of, with more years of experience, have gone towards an EMBA because there tends to be a little bit more leniency from a test perspective. You can use your test score as a benefit. But again, the question that you really need to answer for admissions, if full-time is the way you want to go, is why, why now? Alternatively, looking at, say, MIT Fellows or the MSX program at Stanford, they're looking for 10 years of experience. And so you fit that very well. The other thing that I feel like stands out about those programs is I see more people coming in with 2 degrees, right? So they have an undergrad and they have a master's as well, coming into those programs. Let's see, 8 years of experience in the IT sector, 1 in the UK, in India, 35. If I get my GMAT above a 760, what should I target, full-time or executive? So this is where I think it depends on, number one, where you want to be post-MBA. Are you looking at staying in India, or are you looking to get experience in another country? So US, UK, or other places in Europe, depending upon those programs. You are on the upper end, similar to Deep and Shu earlier, you're on the upper end of that 3 to 8 years, but you're still there. So again, it's kind of answering why now is the right time for you, and also thinking through, what is it you're looking for in an MBA? Are you looking to stay in the IT sector but grow in management, or maybe make a pivot from an engineer, and I'm just using as an example, but an engineer to maybe product management? That I would consider a pivot as well. So, if you're looking to pivot, I think an EMBA can definitely help you do that. If you're looking to make a big change from IT, then having that internship would be really beneficial. Again, you're going to need to explain why, why now is the right time for you. All right. I think, let's see, I think we've got one more we can answer. And then again, through the chat is the link to sign up for a profile review. I love doing this one-on-one with more information and feedback. So it's always fun to talk through people's profile and what the options are. Just a real quick question. Wanted to confirm, will doing a full-time MBA in the US lead to full-time work permit, permanent resident path? So that we haven't addressed that. So there are now, and we've got a great blog post about kind of STEM programs. Most MBAs have some sort of STEM designation, which gets you kind of the right to work in the US up to 3 years with OPT. But you need to find a company that is willing to sponsor you. And so it doesn't guarantee full-time work permit. You have the ability for an employer to apply for a work permit for you. And it happens quite regularly. But then also, permanent resident path, that is more, an MBA doesn't give you a permanent resident path to the US. So that's kind of outside and would need to be worked a different angle. So greetings to Alex in Ecuador. Thank you all so much for being here. I think it's 1 o'clock, so I think we are time up, but please sign up for a free consultation. Really thank you for all the questions. Makes this so much easier and more fun to be answering questions that I know will be helpful to you. So I look forward to hopefully talking to some of you soon.